You don't know it yet, but something is watching you. It's been there for a while, lurking just beyond the edges of your awareness. Quiet, patient. It knows your patterns, your movements, your habits. It follows you every moment, but you will never see it, not in the way you think. You feel it, don't you? That little twinge in the back of your mind when you're alone. That fleeting sense of being watched when you turn a corner, when you glance over your shoulder. But when you look, there's nothing there. It's there, though, just out of reach, waiting. It started small. At first, you thought you were just tired, maybe overworked, distracted. It's easy to dismiss those little things, right? The things that don't make sense at first but feel wrong when you stop and think about them. The way you feel like someone just entered the room, even though the door's been shut all evening. Or how sometimes, when you wake up in the middle of the night, the shadows in the corners of your room seem a little deeper than usual. The air just feels different, still, heavy, but you shake it off. After all, who has time to entertain irrational fears? You go about your day, carrying on with life, because that's what you do, isn't it? You ignore the unease. You dismiss it as nothing. And yet, something inside you knows. Something nags at you, just beneath the surface. Let's talk about that feeling, shall we? The one that came in the middle of the night. You woke to the sound of your floorboards creaking. Not a usual sound. No, it wasn't just the house settling. This was something deliberate. Something that wasn't supposed to be there. You turned toward the noise, your breath caught in your throat. Your eyes searched the room, but all you saw were the familiar shadows. Nothing moved. Nothing was out of place. The door was still locked. Your window was shut. You convinced yourself it was just the house. It had to be. You turned over and tried to go back to sleep, but you couldn't. It wasn't the noise that kept you awake. No, it was that feeling, the weight of it, a pressure on your chest that wouldn't let go. It was then that you realized you weren't alone. Days passed. You told yourself you were just being paranoid, but it kept happening. Subtle things at first, like the way the lights flickered whenever you were alone in a room, the way the air would go cold and stale, and you'd feel a sudden rush of breath on your neck, as though someone was standing right behind you. You checked the locks. You turned on all the lights. You tried to ignore it. But no matter how many times you looked over your shoulder, there was never anyone there. Now, here's the thing that makes this different from all those ghost stories you've heard. This isn't a spirit, no. It's not a haunted house. This is something else. This thing, this lurker, it's not confined to a space. It's something that follows you. It moves with you. Wherever you go, it's there, right behind you, just out of your line of sight, pressing itself into the edges of your world. You won't see it, not ever. Not directly, but it's always there, pulling at the threads of your reality. A flicker in your peripheral vision. A shadow that doesn't belong. A whisper in the silence when there's no one around to make a sound. The longer it's been with you, the more real it's become. You can feel its presence in the corner of your eye. You can hear its movements. But when you try to look, it vanishes. Always just out of view. You're probably thinking it's just your mind playing tricks on you, aren't you? Maybe you're imagining it all. Maybe there's a rational explanation for it. But what if I told you that you are the one who's being watched? What if I told you that everything you've been doing, every movement you've made, has been seen? What if there was something out there, something that has been learning you, studying you, waiting? You've felt it, haven't you? That prickling sense of wrongness that never quite goes away, no matter how much you try to ignore it. And now, it's time. It's not a matter of if anymore, is it? It's here, closer than ever. It won't reveal itself to you, no. You won't see its face, because it doesn't need to be seen. It knows you better than you know yourself. It knows when you're scared, when you're vulnerable, when you least expect it. It's waiting for the moment when you're finally ready to admit the truth. You do know it's there, don't you? It's been watching you. It's still watching you. And in just a moment, when you think you're alone, when you look away from the screen and think it's gone, it will be closer than ever before. But you won't see it. You won't hear it. You'll just feel it, right behind you, waiting